So the 1979 Chicago Cubs season was an experiment and improvement. Now, most people that followed the team at the time, they had a great TV and radio following. But for some reason, 1979, the ball was carrying quite well in Wrigley, and King Kong had a devastating season, and we'll get into this in a second. Now, he finished fifth place in the NL East with an 80-82 record, but with the ownership of William Wrigley, the GM Bob Kennedy, and managers Herman Franks and Joey Malfitano, they were advancing. A very, very big team on WGN TV and radio with ESPN.com and Baseball Reference referring it as probably one of the best seasons ever in the Windy City for the Cubs that didn't get them in the playoffs. This was the 108th season for the franchise, the 104th in the National League, and the 64th in Wrigley Field, and the first to be beamed via satellite and cable TV to viewers all over the States on WGN television, thanks to a postseason decision by the company management to uplink its broadcast signals via satellite with the help of Oklahoma-based United Video Satellite Group, making them the pioneer superstation in the country's Midwest, and the Cubs games of that season, the third Superstation baseball broadcast live Valley Daily relay after the Braves and the Yankees. It was the first season over 40 to be broadcast all over the country, slowly making the team a national brand. The Cubs finished again fifth in the NL East with an 82 record. This was the first season in which the players' last names appeared in the uniforms, but only on away jerseys. It wouldn't be under an eye treaty when names would appear on the home jerseys. And of course, the big movement was the big trade in the offseason when Manny Trio, Greg Gross, Dave Rader were traded by the Cubs to the Phillies for former Expo Barry Foote, Ted Sizemore, Jerry Martin, Derek Padalo, and Henry Mack. Now also the made some minor deals with Detroit that year. Now on May 17th, of course, one of the greatest game of all time, the Phillies bet the Cubs 23-22 at Wrigley Field in 10 innings with a 30-mile-per-hour wind blowing out to left field. This was the only second time since 1913 that both squads scored 20 more runs in the game, the only previous instance also being a Cubs-Phillies game. So this is how close it was, ladies and gentlemen. If he would have done better against Montreal, that was like 10 games in the standings. Pittsburgh wasn't going to lose the division that year, 98-64. Montreal 95-65. The Cardinals 86-76. The Phillies 84-78. And King Kong led them to a strong 45-36 record at home, which within statistically was third best in the division. Now, Chicago won 8 games out of 12 against Atlanta, 7-5 against Cincinnati, 6-6 against Houston, 5-7 against LA Dodgers, 6-12 against Montreal, 8-10 against the Mets, 9-9 against the Phillies, 6-12 against the Pirates, 9-3 against San Diego, 8-4 against San Francisco, and 8-10 against St. Louis. Now, they did pick up Dick Tidrow on May 23rd for future Montreal Expo and Ray Burris. And, of course, Bobby Mercer went back home to New York and he tried for a minor leaguer on June 26, 79. Sizemore eventually traded to the Cubs, by the Cubs to the Red Sox for a player to be named later in cash. And although they had no number one catcher, the pool of Tim Blackwell, Barry Foote, and Bruce Kim did a good job. Key pitchers on the team, including Bruce Serdu, who was still a Cub, Big Daddy Rick Russell, Donnie Moore, Lynn McLaughlin, Dennis Lamp, Mike Kruko, Ken Holtzman made a return. The great Willie Hernandez, Bill Cotto, Doug Capella, and of course Burris was traded. Infielders, big players, Bill Buckner, Ivan De Jesus, Steve Ontiveros, and Turd Said Sizemore. Gene Kleins and Kerry Pable were doing utility work. And the outfielder, good mix, Miguel Delaunay, Speed, Larry Bittner, Ken Anderson, Dave Kingman, King Kong, Jerry Martin, Sam Mejias, and of course Mercer for a while. Now, the stats for the Cubs were deceptive. Okay, no player other than Kingman had more than 20 home runs, although several had close to that mark. Barry Foote went 16 with 56 RBIs. Buckner won 14 with 66 RBIs, 284 average. Sizemore batted 248. De Jesus, very consistent, batting 283, 180 hits and 52 RBIs. On Devers, 457. Kingman, the breakout non-steroid season, 48 homers, 115 RBIs, in only 145 contests, and he hit 50 points above his career average. Jerry Martin hit the 19 homers and 73 RBIs. Now, key players, of course, Larry Bittner drove in 50. Mike Vail drove in 35. Mercer in 58 games had 22 RBIs. Both Mercer and Vail had 7 home runs. Now, pitching, Big Daddy got went 18 and 12. Lynn McLaughlin 13 and 14. Dennis Lamp went 11 and 10. Kruko went 99, and with only 23 starts, but good results, 6 and 9 for Holtzman. Caudell was also there, but they had a rough season, 1 and 7. Now in the bullpen, Suter had 37 saves. Tidrow had 4. Donnie Moore, the future angel, God bless his soul. So the bullpen has Sutter, Bruce Suter, Dick Tidrow, Willie Hernandez, and Donnie Moore. So very, 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 very sweet. Now, at the time, ladies and gentlemen, the AAA Wichita Arrows was offering a lot of good players. So when WGN did the package, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it kind of was an early precursor to ESPN. WGN, which the Superstation was big in Canada for a while too as well, it had nothing but quality. Now, what was kind of ironic, 78 on the Chicago White Sox side, was the disco demolition that blew up Comiskey in a bizarre way. But Dave Kingman, again, he was hitting rocket shots into the apartment buildings across the end of the left wing ivy. So, like I said, the debate is Kingman at this time was selling so many tickets in the AL East parks and also the NL West parks that he was kind of the Vladimir Guerrero of his era. Now, hear me out for a second. We've had difficulty with different podcasts. Dave Kingman deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Okay, he did so much with so many things. Constant injuries, of course, but the rough stats tell me this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking just home runs between 72 and his retirement. Okay, 29, 24, 18, 36, 37, 26, 20, okay, 28, 48, 18, 22, 37, 13, 35, 30, 35. 442 RBIs. Extra base hits, literally over 800. That's in 1,575 at-bats. Scored 900 runs, which is very impressive. And ironically, ladies and gentlemen, you could steal a base. He had 85 in his career. What really hurt him was this, is his strikeout ratio. For example, in 79, he struck out 131 times. But he had the biggest OPS. He had a 956 OPS in that 79 campaign. So on Kingman, his average career, it would be 37 home runs, 101 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 51 bases on ball. Now, he would take an occasional base on ball, but the key was he was a contact hitter. Now, the 1977 season saw him with 4 teams, okay? 2 in the American League, 2 in the National League. New York Mets, San Diego, California, New York Yankees. Yankees, that was sort of a playoff run, and one of his hottest streaks, he added 250, where he had 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 2 doubles, and no singles. So, 79 Cubs, again, it was quite interesting because you got Buckner, you got Kingman, and like there was 5 batters in a lineup that were difficult for anybody. If you got to Bruce Suter was going to save it. But again, if you would have had a consistent fourth starter, Holtzman did his best. But I remember Kingman coming in Olympic Stadium in 78, and the guy at the turnstile said, it's a true story, is that people bought less food when Kingman was at the plate because he didn't want to drop it because he wanted to catch the ball that Kingman would hit. And Kingman had good power right at field, a cavernous Olympic Stadium in center field, but the short right porch, from the kind of the Olympic running venue. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Kingman, 79 Chicago Cubs. Should King Kong being a Hall of Fame, I say yes. But again, let's get debate going again, and let's get him into the Hall of Fame the same year Pete Rose gets in, because in the 78 and the 79 season, they were heavy contemporaries. Rose was like Kingman for being a draw. There were marquee players, there were exciting players, handsome players. They gave Kingman handsome as the day is long. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're doing like we're doing with our Major Baseball broadcast called Behind the Plate, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.